Pickleball, the reason it is exploding here in the States is for a few reasons. One of the reasons is it is very, very affordable to get into. Not like tennis, it's not like golf, it's not like other sports where you have to really heavily invest to get into. Paddles are relatively inexpensive unless you're getting more of like a professional level. The balls are very cheap, and you can go play really anywhere. But most tennis courts you can adjust to play on there. There's pickleball courts pretty much everywhere. So affordability is one of the biggest pieces. The second piece is going to be you do not need to be athletic to be good at pickleball. You do not need to have been an athlete. You don't need to have been playing sports your whole life. I've met many pickleball players who have never played a sport but have been able to pick up pickleball because it's a smaller court. The ball, like I said, is basically a wiffle ball. The paddle is very easy to control. So from all age levels, right, from 5 years old to 95 years old, you can get into pickleball. It's very easy to pick up.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, saying, okay, we know where Canada is, British Columbia, West Coast, right. And you have that big city there called Vancouver. We are 500 miles or 800 kilometers for our European friends north of Vancouver. And here it's snowing. and so a beautiful area here, lots of nature, lots of trees, lots of animals that live here and have part of us, black bears, grizzlies, caribou, deer. We live in harmony with nature. A beautiful, beautiful area. And today we got a special guest. His name is Evan Kuterbach, and he is an entrepreneur, and he's a co-founder of Canyon Pickleball. And we will find out all about pickleball, what it means, and what I'm sure Evan will share that with us. And a proud corporate dropout. In early 2025, he left the corporate world to create a mission-driven pickleball brand focused on getting outside, staying active, and giving back. Interesting, Evan. Tell us all about you, where you are. I believe you're in Florida now. And tell us all about pickleball. But first, about are you from Florida or that region there? And then you did your corporate thing, and then you said, I'm going to change.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to be chatting with you. So my journey has been pretty eventful, I would say. I'm 33 years old, and I worked in the corporate world for about 10 years. I'm not from Florida originally. My wife's family is from Florida. We moved here about 2.5 years ago. Moved here from Colorado. We're actually moving back to Colorado in the springtime. So we're super excited to move back. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But I'll get to why that's important with the story of Canyon. But for me, yeah, my journey has been all over, right? I was in the corporate world for about 10 years, was in client-facing sales and marketing roles, kind of doing the normal, 8 to 5, 9 to 5 path. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you go down the normal path, right? And that's kind of what most people do. And for me, right when my daughter was about to be born, she's 2 now, right when she was about to be born, that's really what kind of changed everything for me.
Okay, now the other part, you went to college and all that, you're a dropout, right? What's about being a dropout of college?
So I wasn't actually a college dropout. I was a dropout from the corporate world. So
Oh,
it's
from the
kind of
college.
a
Okay.
yeah. So it's kind of a fun phrase that a lot of people that have left
Yeah.
the normal 8 to 5 grind. So a corporate dropout after 10 years of being in the corporate world.
Yeah, so that's what you did, and then 8 to 5, you went from 5 to 8, huh? That's what I usually
Yeah.
said. That when I did, I'm about 50 years older than you are. I turned 84 last Friday, the Friday
Oh
before,
wow,
and
incredible.
so I've been an entrepreneur for the last 50 years here in northern British Columbia, and I came to Canada 60 years ago. Started from nothing, cleanup man, lumber pilot, blah, 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 did all these things, gone into the corporate world. Was born in Holland, actually, during the Second World War. And so rough time, still have memories of that, that always stayed with me. And then, but always, when we were liberated by the Canadian Army on April the 12th, 1945, I was 5 years old. It made such an impression on me as a little boy that I always knew I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And it took me till I was 23 till I came here. And then the other dream was to become an entrepreneur, do my own thing, and that took me about 10 years. And then I started a company that now today is the Brink group of companies that has 10 different companies, and we do a whole lot of things. I'm an author, and then obviously very active on podcasting, speaking, all of that kind of stuff. So, but pickleball, I've not really been involved in, and I saw it on your podcast. Tell us about pickleball, but start with
Yeah.
maybe when your daughter was born 2 years ago. That
Yep.
changed your world, you said, and that obviously involved making a leap into your own entrepreneurship that involved pickleball.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was expecting my daughter, I knew that the life that I was living, kind of this like stressful, just not happy with myself, or how I was relating to my partner, and I knew something needed to change. And when my daughter was about to be born, I started to kind of just think, you know what? I've always wanted to start my own thing. I've always wanted to go into business. I've always had that bug. It's always been itching, and I never actually pursued it. And so I thought, you know what, like there's never going to be a better time than while I'm on paternity leave. So while I was on paternity leave, I was still employed with the company I was at. I had 3 months to basically be, full-time dad duty, taking care of our daughter who was just born. And I was just experimenting with ideas. I was experimenting with things I was already good at, things I could maybe go into. But what I really wanted was, I wanted to be able to show my daughter that there's different paths. You don't have to go this traditional standard high school, college, job, and then just keep going. So for me, when she was born, it really shifted. And the funny story is, actually, right when I got back from paternity leave, right, so it was 3 months long, I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to really try to stay at my corporate job. I'm really going to try. And I made it about 3 weeks. And after about 3 weeks, I put in my 2 week notice. And yeah, I severed ties with the corporate world and started basically exploring new ideas, exploring new businesses.
Now, you were in the prime of your life because I presume then you still were then already in your early 30s, 31,
Mm-hmm.
32, but you already had 10 years of corporate history behind you that laid the foundation. But you had this thing that I did, when I came to Canada, when I was 23 years old, I wanted to build my own business. Started from the ground up and then make it successful, obviously. And so and that was the dream. And I did that, you did that. The other part about what I say is extremely rewarding if you pursue your dream. But contrary to what a lot of people think, at least my experience is, I have a lot of people that think that this is easy now. Obviously, I have all these companies. For you, you're being successful in pickleball, and your companies is that it is mainly planning holidays and bringing money to the bank. Well, that's not quite the case. There's a lot more to it than that, and it's a challenge to start something from the ground up.
It is, it is. And honestly, I would not recommend the path that I did, right? I had a newborn. She was 3 months old. I left a very steady paycheck. I left healthcare benefits. We got on my wife's healthcare benefits. And, I wouldn't recommend that to people. But for me, I knew that it was the push that I needed to really go all in.
Now, you gave your wife a shock or your partner a shock because 3 weeks ago you told me that you would stay in the corporate world, and there in the middle of the night, Evan wakes up and he says, "Hey, wake up. What? I'm going to leave the job." Are you kidding me?
It's tough. It was tough, and I'm that's another big piece I would say of what's been able to drive me forward is the fact that I have just a super supportive partner. She is just my biggest fan, my biggest supporter, and I mean, literally on our wedding vows when we got married in 2021, she said, "I promise to help you pursue all of your wildest adventures." And this was really a big test for that. So I mean, I love her so much, and she's been a massive support.
Yeah, wouldn't be the first thing that you would say. That's what I would say is that. So, that then all being said, what is pickleball?
Sure. So pickleball is massive here in the States. It is starting to get more popular in Canada, but pickleball is, I like to say, a combination of tennis, a little bit of kind of racquetball, and a little bit of table tennis. You can think of pickleball as it looks like a tennis court, but much smaller. You can fit four pickleball courts on one tennis court, so it's much smaller. And the rules are fairly similar to tennis, single bounces, that kind of stuff. There's a little nuances that are different, but you can see some of the paddles behind me. They're much smaller than
Yeah, yeah.
obviously a tennis racket. The pickleball, for those of you listening and don't know what a pickleball looks like, it looks a little bit like a wiffle ball. It's bright yellow like a tennis ball, but it looks like a wiffle ball. So
Rubber,
very,
or
very different. Plastic.
what is it? Plastic?
Plastic. Yeah, it's
Okay,
plastic. Yep.
solid?
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's a thicker plastic,
Okay.
so it's pretty solid. And so pickleball really was created because back in the '60s and '70s, it was a combination of multiple sports, and so it's kind of the leftover sport. And so that's why I've always really gravitated towards pickleball over the last 2.5 years. Was it's a very approachable game, so it's a very easy to learn game.
Was it created in the States? In the
It
United
was created
States?
in the States. It was, yeah. It was created. It was created up in the Northwest, kind of close to your neck of the woods, but up
Yeah.
towards Oregon and Washington area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and is it now it's becoming more known?
Mhm.
Also, already in Europe, it is mainly North America.
It is starting to gain more traction. I would say more in some of the Asian countries than in Europe so
Okay.
far. So it's mostly right now. It's the United States, Canada's growing, Puerto Rico is growing, and then a bunch of the Asian countries as well. Mexico, I think, is starting to grow a little bit as well. So it's slowly expanding. It's slowly expanding.
So much smaller, you say. Uh, so the other question I have is, you're the co-founder of Canyon Pickleball.
Mhm.
Where did
Mhm.
Canyon come from?
Sure. So this kind of ties back to when I kind of alluded to living in Colorado. So we moved to Florida from Colorado. Right before I moved, I learned about pickleball. Right. I played sports growing up. I kind of heard about pickleball, but I didn't really know much about it. Right before I moved, I learned. And then we moved to Florida, halfway across the country. I didn't know anyone. I had a newborn daughter, pretty terrifying. And when I was looking for an outlet to meet friends, I was 31 years old, right? Meeting friends in your 30s is not very easy. And so
No.
I thought, you know what? I have this cheap paddle. Why don't I just go try to play pickleball and just see what happens? And so I showed up and I kept showing up. I kept showing up and I started to make more friends. I started to get my body moving. And so I knew there was something there, right? This is 2.5 years ago. I knew there was something that I really gravitated towards. But at that point, it wasn't really the idea that I would start a pickleball business. I was just kind of still going throughout the motions of, working on other things. But then really it was this year, in January of this year, that I met my co-founder and we started just spitballing ideas. We were just having brainstorming sessions, just talking out loud. And I said to him, "Have you heard of pickleball?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Let me tell you about it." And we were like, "Okay, this seems pretty interesting." And it started to snowball pretty quickly. And from January to March, we started to develop the idea of doing pickleball paddles. And then really the idea of the outdoors aspect was really important to both of us. We're both massive hikers, campers. I love snowboarding, all of that good stuff. And so when we started to think about what we could tie into pickleball, which is this outdoors experience, right? You're playing a sport outdoors. What if we could tie that into nature and our love of nature and being outside? So hence the name Canyon. All of our designs are based off of national parks in the U.S. We also donate a portion of our sales to the National Park Foundation, and we also use fully sustainable packaging for our paddle material that we ship out. So we really knew that the outdoors was a massive piece in the creation of Canyon.
So for all our guests watching from around the world, you know, you and me just met. Obviously, you're an expert in that field. So tell us and all my guests about it. Like, we've never heard of pickleball. I kind of looked at it. I do to a certain extent, but our guests watching us from around the world, tell them what makes it exciting, what makes
Sure.
it different from tennis, table
Yep.
tennis, or sell us into saying we want to do that.
Sure, I would love to. This is my favorite thing is getting to talk about the sport. So pickleball, the reason it is exploding here in the States is for a few reasons. One of the reasons is it is very, very affordable to get into. Not like tennis, it's not like golf, it's not like other sports where you have to really heavily invest to get into. Paddles are relatively inexpensive unless you're getting more of like a professional level. The balls are very cheap, and you can go play really anywhere, but most tennis courts you can adjust to play on there. There's pickleball courts pretty much everywhere. So affordability is one of the biggest pieces. The second piece is going to be you do not need to be athletic to be good at pickleball. You do not need to have been an athlete. You don't need to have been playing sports your whole life. I've met many pickleball players who have never played a sport but have been able to pick up pickleball because it's a smaller court. The ball, like I said, is basically a wiffle ball. The paddle is very easy to control. So from all age levels, right, from 5 years old to 95 years old, you can get into pickleball. It's very easy to pick up. Now, the third thing I would say is that it is, in my opinion, the only sport that is, I would say, it kind of like democratizes the sports. And so by that I mean there's no other sport that I can think of that on one court you have four players. On one court you can have a 10-year-old, a 45-year-old woman, a 33-year-old man, and a 85-year-old man on the same court, and it'd be a competitive, fun match. I don't know any other sport that has that type of combination
Me
in
neither.
any sort of environment. So between those three things, that's why I believe pickleball is exploding. It's just so easy to get into.
Okay, so that's that part. So it's male, female, young, old. You don't have to be sports oriented. But now the field is you have about a quarter the size of a tennis field. Does it have to be blacktop, concrete, dirt, grass, and is there
Sure.
a net in between, or what is it? Now you and me go
Yep.
play with two other
Sure.
people. So what will we see when we say, okay, well, here is the paddle, John, and the
Yep.
other three people, and so now we're gonna find the pickle field.
Sure. So it's going to look very similar to a tennis court. It's going to have
Okay.
a net like a tennis court. It's going to have lines like a tennis court. The
Okay.
lines will look very similar to a tennis court.
Right.
It's going to be on like a blacktop surface, so like a hard court.
Okay.
It's not going to be played on grass. It's not going to be played on dirt or anything like that. So it's going to
Right.
look very similar to a tennis court. When you
Okay.
see a pickleball court, you're going to think that they just put a tennis court into like a shrink ray machine
Right.
and shrunk it down.
Okay.
That's pretty much what it's going to look like when you walk
Okay.
up.
Okay. Okay. There
Yeah.
we go. Then so we there is the net. The two of us are on one side, the other two on the other side. We have the ball. I stand at the end. I throw it in the air, and I go like this. That's tennis.
So yeah, yep. So there is going to be differences. What I always tell people is when you are trying to get into pickleball, the first thing I always say is go onto YouTube and look up how to play pickleball. There's great videos to kind of show what it looks like.
Yeah. YouTube.
But yep. But one of the best things about pickleball is if you type in on Google Maps and you search pickleball courts near you, you'll find some, and I guarantee you there will be people playing there. Now, when you go up to the court, let's say you find a paddle, you find one online, you go and you basically tell people, "Hey, I'm new. I've never played before. Can you kind of show me the ropes?"
Right.
I guarantee you someone there will help kind of show you what's going on.
Right.
The rules are going to take a little bit to get used to, but you can think about the volleys and the rallies that you would have in tennis are very similar. There's just going to be some little changes that, honestly, unless you're looking at like a video showcasing what the differences are, it's a little hard to get into over a podcast. But for the most part, you can imagine the rallies that you're doing in tennis very similar. You're going to be hitting the ball with the paddle. The serve, to your point, John, is going to be underhand, so it's not going to be an overhead serve. It's going to be underhand. But other than that, it's going to look very similar to a more condensed version of it.
So when will it be an Olympic sport?
So it did not get approved for the next Summer Olympics, which is unfortunate because those Summer Olympics are in the United States. So that's, within North America, and so it's definitely sad. But there is talk that it will be approved for the following Olympics. There's a lot of buzz going on within how it's expanding and how it's starting to grow. So yeah, I see it becoming an Olympic sport. I really do. If table tennis is in there, tennis is in there. We've got skateboarding, we've got breakdancing now. So I think that pickleball will be there.
So your business then is that what I see, what you would sell is paddles, nets, and balls.
So we sell paddles. We don't sell nets at this point. We want to get into selling nets. Right now we sell paddles and balls, and then we also do some
And also do what?
t-shirts, and we
Oh,
do
t-shirts. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, t-shirts and like some tote bags, things like that.
Yeah. You have a website, that maybe share that with us as well, so that
Yeah,
people.
yeah, we do. It's canyonpickleball.com. We're across all social media and everything like that. But it's just canyonpickleball.com, CANYON pickleball.com. But really, like what I always like to tell people, kind of the difference with Canyon and the reason that we created this business is we really want people to have something that we basically found kind of by accident, right? Like we found a community, we found a sport that is just so encouraging and so uplifting, and everyone is so friendly. So we want to be able to give that to the world. We want to be able to share that with the world. And so we really stand on being, mission driven with our donations, being standing on a really high quality product, but for a very affordable price. So we've just been loving what we've been building here.
So at the same time, maybe what you would be doing, I don't know. I'm now thinking entrepreneurial, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously you have found success here. Is saying, what else would he be doing then? I presume that you would be doing. How can you get somebody that is thinking about this to show them on podcast or on your website the fun side of pickleball and how it really works in a setting that is real, and what are the interesting parts of it, and take people, potentially clients or people that are thinking about pickleball, stimulating. This is something for you watching this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really that's really a big piece of it, is really educating people on
Right.
what pickleball is, how fun it is. And really furthermore to that, it's sharing our community and our story, right? There is a lot of pickleball brands out there, John, and some of the listeners will probably go Google pickleball and you're going to see hundreds of companies, tons of different brands and everything. But really you need to find one that aligns with you, right? And so if our mission of being nature conservative, and thinking about the outdoors and taking care of the planet, and also just having fun on the court, then awesome. We would love to have you at Canyon. But the biggest piece is just finding a brand that's going to really resonate.
Well, the interesting part about this, Evan, is that, and not blowing my own horn here, but we're a very active podcaster, probably with the top 1% globally. We have millions of people watching us. We have done probably about 500 podcasts, but I've never done anybody talking about pickleball or had the
I love that.
opportunity to talk to somebody about pickleball. So you're
I
the
love that.
first. You're the
I love
first.
that. And
This
maybe
is
the only.
your
Maybe.
this is your podcast.
I love that. I love that. So you said you know a little bit about it, right, John? But
Yeah.
you haven't like seen it much in Canada. You haven't
No,
tried it
not at
yet.
all. No.
Yeah, yeah. Did you play any sports growing up?
Yeah, I did. I grew up in Holland. I played soccer. I was a speed skater, and
Mm.
in Holland, so a soccer player, and then I'm a brown belt judo, and
Oh
so
wow.
that's the sports I did in Holland when I left, and then now I'm at 84. I still believe in fitness, health, and I'm also the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And this is my last book that I did, Living
That's
Young, Dying
incredible.
Old. That's a picture of me, actually. And I, uh, I was a late bloomer. Everybody needs a shock every so often in life at younger age, like you did. But for me, at an older age, when I was 58 years old, I got a case of diverticulitis, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. For the people
Mm.
watching us, is that saying I have pain on my right side. I'm not a doc or a medical guy, but it's slightly appendix. If it is on the left side, it could well be diverticulitis or your colon. And
Mm.
so it ruptured in my case, which means that the toxins go through your body. You have to attend to it very, very quickly. Otherwise, it could be a problem. It attacks all the healthy organs. So by the time I got to the hospital, I got operated. They took 20 centimeters out of my colon. And basically, what they said, I came that close. And so
Wow.
my wife is vegetarian, and I didn't listen as well as I should have of all the years. I was not abusive, but I didn't listen to the diets and all of those kind of things. And I was one of those individuals that we all do that, like that at the end of the year we say we're going to do this, that, and that, and then I'm going to buy a membership to the gym, and then 2 weeks later we can find 100 reasons why we're too busy to go to the gym. And
Yeah.
so until this happened to me, then I knew I had to do something about it. And so I started then the following year when I was recovering. I got a trainer. I already was in business. I was very, very active, but I was not in good shape, not as good a shape as I could be, should be. And I started to go to the gym more regular. I listened to my wife more. I became vegan and now probably vegetarian, 90-10 probably. And when I started going to the gym, after about 6 years in the gym with the trainer, somebody came up to us. By then I was already in my 60s, 64 or so. They said, "Hey John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Really? Yeah, bodybuilding and physique." And I said, "Why not?" And so I started then getting ready for training. And then when I was 67, I competed here in Northern BC, bodybuilding and physique, came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique, qualified me for the provincials here, came in third in physique, second in bodybuilding, qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. Then COVID came. And so then it set me back. And now again, I'm training for going to the Arnold's in 2025 when I'm 85. And this is what I look like now. And obviously, I'm very committed to training. And
Yeah.
so, what I'm saying, everything is possible. And so,
Yeah.
subsequently, I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, but the message really is that you can do this at any age, and that in diet to us and me now, very, very important. I do all the shopping. If I go to a store, I walk usually through the outside of the store. I don't like the processed foods that are in the middle because I don't know what they put in there. So I'm very conscientious, as my wife is obviously, of diet and exercise. Also mentally, stay active.
Mhm.
So at even 84 years young, I say everything is possible. And that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
what I do.
I love that. I love that story, and that's absolutely terrifying what happened with your colon and everything. So glad to hear that you're doing okay now. And
Oh, yeah.
honestly, that's also just a massive piece of what I love about pickleball. Just to kind of bring it to that real quick is pickleball is one of those sports where you don't really realize you are getting a great workout in when you're just out there playing, right? There's actually been a lot of studies that have been done. There was a study that was done recently that I want to say it was in 2 years ago, maybe, but it talked about how people that play racket sports, so tennis,
Yeah.
racquetball, pickleball, table tennis, they actually live 7 years longer than people that don't. And the biggest reason is not necessarily the cardio, but it's the brain, right? It's the
Exactly.
firing of the neurons in the brain because they're having to do complex multiple tasks at one time. And while that's not necessarily like the selling point for why we tell people get into
No,
pickleball,
no.
it is a massive benefit to getting that body moving.
Yeah, and the point that I'm making is this one, Evan, is that you don't have to be a bodybuilder or an Olympian. Or what I'm simply saying is that be careful on your diet.
Mm-hmm.
Get exercise. Your body extremely forgiving. But it will only take abuse for so long, especially the obvious smoking, drinking, all those things, drugs that are not good for you is all very, very important. Understand it. There's nothing more important to get sunshine, vitamin D, get sleep, 7.5, 8.5 hours a day. That's what I do. Then get exercise. I do this, but at least for those people that say, well, I can't really do this, that, or the other thing, pickleball may be a good choice. At least walk. And when you start
Mm-hmm.
walking, even a half an hour a day, find a partner to walk with, then go to maybe an hour, and then diet. And then the amazing things that happen, Evan, as you know, is that somebody will come up to you and say, hey, Evan, you look great. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then, so that's what will happen. And it can happen at any age. You are young compared to me, but it happened to me in my 60s. And still is
Definitely.
today at 84. I can run circles around most of the people. After this podcast is over, I'm in the gym and not just chit chatting. I'm there to work with a trainer, getting ready for my first competition next year again in April, and then making my way to the Arnolds. And that's what I do in my case. But the commitment is to diet. I'm very careful about it. I want to understand it. The other one is giving my body exercise. I don't abuse things. I want to understand the medical side. Too often there's too many chemicals that fix maybe one thing, create problems elsewhere. I want to understand it as well as I can. So get good advice. Listen to podcasts like ours that talk about health issues and all the other things related to it. I'm not a doc, but I'm saying just the obvious things is to
Mm-hmm.
stay fit, stay healthy, mentally, physically, and it's amazing what you can do. And there is more and more information available around the world about things. How can you stay fit and healthy? And it then becomes fun. What I do in the
Totally.
gym, what you do in pickleball, and what will
Mm-hmm.
happen to people that are involved physically and see the benefit mentally and physically, it's a huge advantage as you go forward.
Definitely, definitely. And I think like you said, right, it's about listening to your body. It's about finding the thing that's going to be getting you active, get you moving, get your mind moving. Because like you said, right, the physical piece is a big piece of it, but the mental piece is also a massive piece of it. And knowing that you're taking care of all those pieces, you just have to start with something. Right? Like you said, it's whether it's going for a walk, whether it's going to the pickleball court, whether it's whatever it is, right? It's getting started with something, and that's what I love so much about just pickleball. It's just like it brings you outside, it brings you into nature, it brings you into getting that vitamin D, gets your body moving. So you just got to find what's right for you.
Yeah. Now, the other part that I'm very excited about always is about 5, 6 years ago, I started blogging, and then from there, and then we did locally here, did some kind of podcasting, but just on a local level. And then obviously COVID came. We couldn't do that anymore with the television station here. So I have this apartment, and we said, why don't we turn it into a studio? He said, sure,
I
that's
love
what we
that.
do. And as you can see the setting, I have a couch there, one here. The way I used to do it is we have a lot of interesting people around here, but Prince George has about 80,000 people, the region about 120,000. So, but there's a lot of interesting people, but we got to the point that saying, well, we're going to have to set up another studio maybe in Vancouver. But then the more we thought about it, and the more I thought about it, is that watching TV in particular, CNN, ABC, and all the other channels, and sometimes what I see is 1, 2, 3, 4 different people from all over the world interacting together and saying, wow, maybe this is the way to go. We'll do it virtual. And so we started doing that probably 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so hence we are podcasting around the world, around the globe, working with PodMatch is an organization that matches people from around the world, and you're probably a member of that as well. And so since the time we have done about 500 podcasts, either there, and about 300, and you number 347, where I'm the host, but we're also guest on probably another 150 or so. But it's the future of podcasting, interaction, and the new media is podcasting globally. It's still at its very beginning. And can you imagine there, I had never really talked to anybody about pickleball until I saw you coming on as a guest. But we know we got millions of people watching us. In the last 2 years, about 22 million, I think. And then on YouTube, not bragging about what we do, but I think we have something like 630,000 subscribers. So there is a lot of people that are watching and have an interest. It's extremely powerful, the media related to podcasting and globally. So that's very exciting for me at my age in particular, because I'm probably one of the most successful podcasters in North America, but certainly one of the oldest one. And that combination can go together. Age is just a number. It's quality of life that counts. So I'm taking care of my health, what I eat, diet, physically, go to the gym, compete. I could be playing pickleball, but on the point that I'm making is stay active and then mentally stay active. And this obviously, before I never met you before. I looked at your bio, and we will have an extremely interesting conversation over this hour that we have together about pickleball, about your life, my life, and it challenges you as well as me, but it shows to the rest of the world what is possible and what the new media is and will be.
Totally. And I think, to your point, what I love the most is right now, and what you're doing in like the podcast world, and just like you said, in the media world, people are itching and searching for connection to people, right? Where they're itching for stories. They want to feel connected to stories and personal struggles and triumphs, and how you built things, and how you failed at things, right? So like the more of these conversations, like you said, like, would you and I have ever been connected? I don't know. Maybe at some point we would get connected, if we make a trip to Vancouver and we get up that way.
Highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. And so I think what is so exciting, like you said, of organizations like Podmatch who connect people like me to people like you, and just like the broader where media is heading, is we're able to bring, like you said, these stories to people, to the masses, that we just couldn't do before, right? Like,
No.
I'm very excited to see what's going to come in the next couple of years.
So one of the things that I did, talking about the challenges along the way. So when I came to Canada, I came here with nothing. My dream was to build a lumber mill, and I knew I had to go to Western Canada to do that. So I left Holland. I was academically not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. They said, what are we going to do with this guy? Well, some people said, maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. Let's get him to learn a career where he can use his hands. So they sent me to a furniture factory, and at 13, so I became a furniture maker. And then at nights I would go to the college, but kids can be hard on each other. And so all the friends that I had grade 7 that went on to college, university, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then I was kind of looked down at. But I always knew that I was just as smart as the other ones, and I had these challenges along the way, and didn't know exactly what it was or why it was, and I felt I had to start over again, starting with nothing. So my dream was being liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, to go to Canada and then start over new. I was going to go when I was 17, but then was drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years. Good experience. And so after I came out of there, when I was 23, I left with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I did go to British Columbia. That's where all the trees are. When I arrived in Vancouver off the train, went to the immigration office, couldn't speak English, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And I went to the immigration office. Fortunately, there was a German fellow. I could speak some German, and I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a lumber mill. And he said, go to Prince George, 600 miles or 500 miles north of Vancouver, 800 kilometers. And so that's what I did 60 years later. That's where I am today. I can still see where the Greyhound station used to be, about 2 blocks away from here. Came off the bus, had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes. I counted my money at least 3 times. Didn't have a job, couldn't speak the language. I had $25.47. But I had attitude. No matter how tough things are, I always know tomorrow will be a better day. And I don't tolerate negative people around me. I had passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic. I work harder than anybody. And even still today at 84, I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed. And every day to me is a challenge. And after I've been working for nearly 71 years, because I left school at 13, today, I do have a lumber mill, and a number of them actually. I have warehouses. I have 4 silos actually. The one is lumber, the other one is warehousing, distribution, and logistics. The other one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial, and the other one is media. So I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I intend to start a platform here in the next couple of months. And then, so that's kind of what I do. And then obviously I'm very active on Podmatch or podcasting. And the first book that I wrote is Against All Odds. And writing books is not easy. And so a lot of people said to me, hey, John, you had such an interesting life. You should write a book. And so I tried for probably 20 years, on, off. And I knew if I didn't start it about 5-6 years ago, when I'm already into my 70s, late 70s, it will never happen. So the first book that I wrote is Against All Odds. It's not about how successful John is, rather all the ups and downs. And it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And, and then I started another one, and the last one that I did is this one here, Living Young, Dying Old, and I'm doing another one right now on communications. Still haven't found the exact title for it. That will come out in the next couple of months. So
that's awesome.
So the story is this one, after being exposed to far too much during the war years, resulting in PTSD and the inner child counseling that I got when I was 50, actually, the fear, it still stays with me even after all that time. And then failing, if you wish, in school as it was then considered to be success, failing grade 3 and grade 7, and then knowing I had to start over again for my own satisfaction to prove to me, not to anybody else, to me, that I was just as smart as the other ones, not better than, but as smart, and then starting with nothing from the ground up, and then building a sizable company. We have 10 different companies, but it's not about that. Obviously being successful and still doing more of the same, even now, all our silos will double or triple in size in the next 5 years. And I'm still extremely active in it. I'm working, like what you said, from 8 till 5 or from 9 till 5. I've worked from 5 till 9, even still today. And I love it, and there are lots of opportunities. But more than anything is quality of life, understanding health and fitness, making the commitment to your body, staying fit, and still being mentally positive is extremely important. And a lot of people say, well,
Hmm.
I got this challenge and that challenge. The other one that I should just briefly show you, I'm also ADHD, and I wrote a book about that. I call it a superpower. and
Hmm.
and with all those, and I have dyslexia as well, so all those combinations of those challenges still made me successful because I believe that you can and anybody can, and to have a positive mindset is extremely important.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the stories. Thank you for just kind of sharing that because I was doing a little research myself and I just loved hearing your story. And actually, one of my favorite podcasters, interviewers, reporters is Guy Raz. He's one of my favorites. And one of the questions he always asks people that he interviews, and I'm curious to ask you actually, he asked them at the end of his podcast, have you listened to his podcast, How I Built This? Have you listened to that one?
No.
Okay. So it's basically it's hosted by NPR and it's called How I Built This for the listeners that are listening. And it's a really great podcast that just shows how people build things,
I will
different
listen to
companies.
it.
Yeah. And at the end of every interview, he asks the founder. He says, of all of your success, everything that you have built, everything that you've acquired, all of the things, how much do you attribute to luck, and how much do you attribute to hard work and your work ethic? So I'm curious to hear your answer.
I get that question asked numerous times, and what I always say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's how it works. It's nothing to do
Mhm.
with luck directly in most cases. Hard work, stay the course, never give up. You become then what others interpret likely as luck, but it isn't. It's hard work, staying the course, never give up, all those basic individuals. And then the other part, very important to me, is giving back to your community and
Mhm.
staying in touch and being knowledgeable about the things that are happening and reaching out to others maybe that have challenges, and and all of those things are important to me. Not money, not success as a lot of people interpret it. I don't need to be a millionaire, a billionaire, or a trillionaire for that matter, or whatever it is. All those things mean nothing. What is important is saying that you can look back and saying, I was happy, successful, and what was most important is being part of community and
Yeah,
giving back to others.
I agree. I think I forget who said it, right, but it's the idea that we're our legacy and what we're known for is the relationships that we've built and the relationships that we have to each other, to our friends, to our family, to our community. And it's so important. And that's, to me, it's the same thing, right? I've always kind of considered myself a relationship builder. I love meeting new people. I love getting to interact with people like yourself and go on podcasts and chat about each other's journeys and stories because we've all been down so many different paths, different ethnicities. But at the end of the day, like we're all kind of in on the same life experience, right? We're all doing the same thing. So being able to share these stories and build those connections are just so important.
Yeah, and the other thing that I did is I do quite a few presentations and have done that for the last number of years. The challenges with presentations for me is that if I do I still do them now, but if I do one in the States someplace, it usually takes me at least 2 days to get there, to make the presentation, come back, and where with podcasting, the amazing thing is that I know, as you and me have had this conversation virtually for an hour, that I already know that at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people will watch us watching this podcast. and will take experiences from us that they like, and you being very open and sincere of who you are. I do the same. I share with them the good, the bad, and the ugly, the challenges along the way, and I love podcasting, and and sharing it with. How can you share it with more than we are doing on a podcast like this that is being seen around the world? It is amazing, and to me that's very, very rewarding, but also very challenging, because podcasting, you never know. Like in our case, this podcast, what we will do, we will release it later on today. We release all our podcasts within 24 hours. If we take it later on in today, then usually we take it either 9 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If it is 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it comes out the following morning. This one, 9 o'clock in the morning, we podcasted. It will come out this afternoon as it was presented between you and me. And I
Yeah.
like that part. We do that all the time. So
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I think to your point too, what like the honest conversation, right, that we're having here, I think a lot of it comes down to doing the work of being vulnerable, right? Like I think you have to be vulnerable to build those connections, right? Like you said, you and I have just met today. We just met in this conversation, and the only way that either of us can be able to be honest and transparent is just being vulnerable with the other and trusting that the other person is going to receive that vulnerability with respect and love and all of that. So yeah, I think vulnerability is really like the key factor that I think I know that I want to instill in my daughter. It's what I really kind of pride myself on as well. So
yeah, and the interesting part about it, Evan, is that you are 32, I'm 84. At 52 years old, and you are, we lived a life, and you will get an experience from what you receive from me in this podcast, and so do others from around the world will get from your experience, learn from, and then our conversation, obviously, and then watching us. The other part that I usually say, and you have a podcast as well, is that subscribe to our podcast for those that are watching us. Like him if you like it, share it with others, make comments on it, because podcasting, and especially if you like it, by subscribing it, we're doing the right things, which we know we are doing, but it encourages others even more. And I found it amazing, like we are approaching 700,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think we are 630 or so. By the end of the month, we'll be probably close, being a little bit presumptuous, but we are approaching 700,000, which is amazing. It's
incredible.
immensely powerful. And I like that, and I respect that, and say we have to do more of the same, and bringing on people like yourself and others. And my podcast go right across the board, all kinds of different topics, all about different things, but in particular with people that have challenges in numerous of areas. And that's why I share some of the things that I did, being in the war years, which were challenging, not being very successfully, looked at as dumb and stupid in a lot of ways in school, and then being able to prove to yourself you can do it, never give up, stay the course. And what I say, my foundation is attitude, passion, work ethic. What will follow is success.
Yeah, agree. Couldn't agree more. My phrase that I always say is why not me, right? Why not me to be able to build something great? Why not me to be able to become healthier again and more active? Why not me to build the life that I want for my family? So yeah, I couldn't agree more, John.
Anything else in closing, Evan, that comes to mind before we go?
No, nothing really. Again, like I mentioned, people can follow us and support us. If you like our mission, you want to learn more about pickleball, we do ship to Canada, so that is something that we do. So you can check us out at canyonpickleball.com and all social media. But yeah, just thank you so much for having me, John.
Excellent, Evan. It was a privilege and really enjoyed it. Let's make sure we stay in touch.
Definitely, definitely will.
Thanks, Evan. Take care.
You too.
Is he still there? Hey, Evan, you still there?
Yeah, did you need me to wait till the recording finish?
No, it's all done now. So
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
So yeah, it's all
Perfect.
good. So
Awesome. Thanks, John.
so did it feel okay?
Yeah, no, it was perfect. That was great. That was awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was great to meet you. Great to learn. I'm excited for you to get into pickleball. You've got to get into it now.
I like it. So the podcast will come out later on today for your guests to watch from around the world.
Perfect. Awesome. I can't wait. Thanks, John. See ya.
Bye bye.